Oh guys, I'm at the mall and waiting for Miss Hazel over there to get her nails fixed. Dr. Hazel, our chaperone, take me to the governor and the president and stuff like that. A lot of people are looking at me because they think I'm quite crazy. They would be correct though. So I got my Adidas. I actually got a pair of Armani glasses. Mercedes that we're driving, new shoes. Apparently, some people dress for work here with really nice sports clothes on. Anyway, what am I going to do? I'm going to do a spiritual video. I'm going to have to hold it, but no, I'm not. You know, I'm going to do a step one video. Let's talk about the disease. Let's talk about what's wrong with this state, right? Let's talk about how we can fix it, and then if we can fix it here, we can fix it anywhere, right? New York. If you're gonna make it there, you can make it anywhere. If you can fix it here, you can fix it anywhere. The problem, you know, I think I told you guys earlier that they got a hold of me through my dopamine video. I know Mikey would be very impressed with that. So I did a dopamine video on what drugs and alcohol does to the brain and how it resets the whole dopamine reward system, which is obviously from God, because our three sets of instincts, we get dopamine rises in order to keep going as a species and to live as a human being, as humans. All animals have it. So if I go eat an apple, or if I see an apple, or if I go have sex, or if I see sex, you know, if I run a mile or climb a tree, there's dopamine involved, right? Sex, social, and security. When I'm in a meeting with other alcoholics and I'm relating, there's dopamine trigger. That's why the meetings, and I'll tell you about it in a minute, but that's why the meetings are good. Now let me explain something about the dopamine that I got from Norvocal. We used to think that the alcoholic and addict, or they did, used to get this big high spike in dopamine, which is true when you're newly drinking. Remember when the alcohol worked? Remember when the drugs worked? You were getting some dopamine. What happens? Over time, you become addicted. The drugs and alcohol reset the whole dopamine rewards system. It moves it down, which means there's dopamine receptors that are damaged. Remember back in the 90s when everybody was doing ecstasy and they used to say it uses up all your serotonin? Well, they know now that it also used up a lot of your dopamine. So what's happening? So now you're an addict and you're using, and the damage is continuing on the dopamine receptors, and now you're getting very little spikes of dopamine. But you take away the drugs and alcohol, and you get no spikes of dopamine. But even the spike that you get, and they didn't know this until they started mapping the brain or analyzing the brain with machines and showing the dopamine, right, where it's going, what it's doing. So what they learned was, they were shocked. They were like, there's no dopamine, very little. And you take away the dopamine, and you just feel depressed. You just want to die. So what they realized is the addict was no longer using, the alcoholic was no longer drinking, the food addict was no longer eating, the sex addict and the gambler was no longer having, whatever they do. Gambler addicts were no longer gambling, pornography, right? They weren't getting the dopamine anymore, like the rise. They weren't getting high on it anymore. What they were doing, they were just doing it just to feel somewhat normal. Because you take away the substance, or the gambling, or the sex, or the food, or the drug, or the alcohol, and you're depleted. So they were just using to feel kind of like just normal, not to kill themselves. And we relate to that. When we're drinking, we're just living to drink and living to drink and drinking to live, So they saw the video on the dopamine. They saw my testimonials. I just put up another one today, Mark. They saw the testimonies on Mark, Derek, Brian, Tyler, Nathan's mom. Nathan's in Oklahoma. And they liked it, and they realized that this guy's got a pretty good success rate. He's got the nerve. He's so brave. He's talking about dopamine, because these are psychoanalysts. These are top PhD doctors working for the government, right? All I did was watch a few YouTube videos on, Norvocal. Anyway, they researched me all the way back to my videos with my son, and they researched me for a week. There's a team of them, and then they contacted me in Port Morales. Long story short, or long story longer. um, they reached me in Puerto Morelos, and here I am in Chihuahua, and they want me to help them. They got rehabs there, but they want me to help them direct, manage, and submit a proposal using my experience, 19 years of experience, and what works for me, which is basically the 1938 program. However, I also carry that message with love, compassion, empathy, and heart and soul. And they like that, and I do. I'm living now to help people, and if there's some money involved that I can sustain myself, giddy up, bring it on. So that's it. Step one, didn't talk too much on that, but you heard about the dopamine. And step one is basically, what does it mean to be powerless? Powerless over alcohol means we are going to drink and use no matter what. Why? A couple of reasons. We're so restless, irritable, discontent. You know, that we just, all we can think about is the ease and comfort that comes at once with taking a few drinks. We see other people drinking, they're drinking with impunity. So we succumb to the desire again, and we take that drink because we forget what's sufficient for us, the humiliation and suffering of jail last week, or losing my son a month ago. I don't even know how many times I've been to jail. I know it's the worst thing I've ever been through, but I've said this 100 times before, but I can remember what alcohol felt like at 13 years old, up in the field with Carrie, what I was wearing, who I was with, what girls I asked to dance. I mean, I arrived. I think I told you guys about Leslie Doucet. You know, I walked across the floor to ask her to dance, and she said no, and I didn't care. Had a crush on her for 5 years. Alcohol was going to be my friend for a long time. Then it stopped working because it reset the whole dopamine. I didn't know it. We didn't find this out now. There was no more fun times. There was no more dopamine spikes. It was just drinking just to live. You know, if it wasn't for drinking, I probably would have killed myself. Really, coming on the end, as funny as this sounds, alcohol might have saved my life. Because without alcohol, I probably would have killed myself. But I was in that terror, bewilderment, frustration, despair state anyway because of alcohol. So you can't really say alcohol saved your life because alcoholism was the reason I was in that to begin with. However, if they didn't have this solution from 1938, I know I would be dead 15 years ago. No doubt. Every month I was ending up in the hospital or suicidal. That was 19 years ago. It took me 4 years to get sober. And here's step one. I was done drinking. I hadn't had a happy drink in 5 years. And I'm down here in California at the time, and I'm going to stay sober for my son. I want to be a dad. You know? I'm not going to go back to Canada. And I was done. I mean, I'm done drinking. Sick and tired of being sick and tired. Drank for 4 more years. That's powerless over alcohol. Drank for 4 more years when I really, really didn't want to, and it wasn't even fun anymore. But I had to keep drinking to get rid of that restless, irritable. It was torture. It was torture to be dry. It was torture to feel that depression and worry and future worry and shame and guilt. That was, I needed some alcohol to get rid of some of that. You know what happened? The alcohol caused more. Caused more fear, caused more resentment, caused more shame and guilt. So I had to drink because of that, and then more, it was a vicious cycle. And I got to the jumping off point. I was wishing for the end. The book talks about it. No bueno. Anyway, I'm going to upload that. That's step one. Basically, the obsession is where we do all the work. The obsession is an idea. It's insanity, by the way. Step two, you're going to be restored to sanity. You know, working the rest of the steps. So it's an insane thought. It preleads this. It's actually a mental state that precedes a relapse into drinking. It's a thought that's going on when I'm sober. When I'm cold stone sober, I'm thinking how I can control and enjoy it after I've got 15 years of unsuccessful, destructive, life-shattering drinking. I almost lost my life. And I'm telling myself I can have a couple because it's 11 o'clock at night. I don't pick up my son till Saturday, and I'm not driving. Like, that's insane. But I needed a drink. And my mind, my ego had to tell me, you need a drink, so here's how you're going to do it. Here's how you're going to control and enjoy, because you need one. You might as well tell yourself you can do it. You know, you don't want to go around thinking like you're crazy. You ain't going to be able to pull this off. Never. One more attempt and one more failure. Unhappy drinkers who hear this will know exactly what I'm talking about. So we're at 10 minutes. I'm going to end it now. Love y'all. Tune in tomorrow. Might do a little step 2.